So welcome everybody to this orientation to teaching on Zoom. I'm Nancy Knowles. I'm president of the board of directors at Arts Center East, and my area is writing. And I'm actually really fascinated by the ways in which folks in other disciplines use Zoom to teach art and culinary arts. So I'm looking forward to seeing how people start to envision how this technology might be useful to engaging students. So I think the focus of tonight will be I'm just gonna show off the features and then we'll talk a little bit about, again, folks that have used Zoom, we'll talk a little bit about their experiences, and then we'll answer any questions you might have. But of course, feel free to interrupt as we move forward if something occurs to you. So the things I'm gonna show tonight are, I'm gonna talk just briefly about the host and the designation of the host in Zoom and what that means, use of speakers, microphone, video, virtual backgrounds and lighting, in case those are useful. I want to say too, the chat feature and the interactivity and the ways in which you can control participation if you need to. And also the screen share, the second camera, and the breakout rooms. So those are all things Zoom can do that we'll just touch on tonight. So I'm going to start now by just mentioning that currently I'm the host, and all that means is I have total power. So I can control all the features of this. So if I wanted to, like, for example, if one of the participants had background noise happening in their life, I can mute everybody if I need to. So I can mute people, I can unmute people. I can allow people to share their screen, and I can share my own screen. So the host has those roles. And as the teacher, essentially what we do at the Arts Center, hi Laura, welcome. What we do when we set people up is someone will have the host role, and we'll also assign the artist to be an alternate host to ensure that the artist has the controls as well over the features of Zoom. So that's just one thing to know about. We did a little bit of this, I think, when Eduardo arrived, in terms of noticing the menu bar along the bottom of the screen, right? So there's the microphone and the video. If you want to stop, if you want to mute yourself, mute your microphone, you can turn it off. You know, I'm going to mute now. You can kind of see there I'm not unmuted, right? So you can control that. You can turn your video on and off. You can just experiment with that. Okay, bye. Right? So, you know, these features are kind of fun, and I've got to say that my students enjoy playing around with them as well. Most of them have decided they don't really want to appear on the video, and you know, that's okay if that's how it happens. But I think it really builds a sense of community to have people with their cameras on, so we can see each other. We can see our smiling faces, and if you go up to the upper corner of your screen, you'll see a button that says View, and you can change the view. I'm right now in gallery view, which is the sort of Brady Bunch look. And I don't know if that's what you all have right now, but that allows me to see everybody, which is really fun. But you could also change to speaker view. And if it's speaker view, then the person who's speaking is the one that gets the biggest screen. And that may be useful when you are the teacher and you really want to have the students focus on you. You can ask them to change to speaker view. They can also pin the screen that they want to see. So if you look at the look at all the windows of people that are on your screen right now. If you run your mouse over the upper right-hand corner of one of the windows, you'll see a little set of 3 dots. And those 3 dots have some options. one of which is pin. So if you pin a video, that tells your computer which one you want to be big. So again, if there's something important happening in a particular window, you know, maybe you're wanting to have each participant share their artwork, right? You could have either a speaker view, or you can have the participants pin a view, and that would allow that particular person's screen to be big, and so everybody can see them. So there's just, again, features like that that can be kind of fun. Okay, so virtual backgrounds are really fun. And I think, Laura, you have one right now. Yeah, I see. Okay, so those of you that are artists and you have art in your background, I really like that. And I would not recommend virtual. Art itself is a beautiful and amazing thing. But if you decide you don't want to share what's behind you, as I said, I often teach in my kitchen. So this is my kitchen. So if I decide that I'm too embarrassed, I can go to virtual, set up a virtual background. So if you go down to, and I like that Laura's switching her backgrounds up for us to demonstrate. Thank you. If you go down to that lower menu, and there's a little arrow next to the video icon. And among the things in that menu is choose a virtual background. So if you click on that, it should take you to again, some settings that you can control, and you can pick a background. Right, so yeah, whoa, I'm in space. So you can play around with that. Here's another one that maybe you'll like, right? This is the Art Center, right? Here I am with our benefit show behind me. I'm from Southern California, so here's Newport Beach. When I'm feeling like I need a little vacation, I just put that one on. But you can see what's kind of funny is it does weird things to your hair, and like sometimes your hands are in and out of the picture. So you can always play around with virtual backgrounds. One technique that I've seen people use is when the students first arrive, is to ask them to set up a virtual background and then say why they picked the one they picked. It's just a way to introduce themselves. Sometimes that's kind of fun. Other issues with Zoom have to do with lighting. And so I'm going to show you. Let me get out of my virtual background here. Going back to none. Okay, so here's my kitchen again, right? So if I turn my overhead light on, right, it's too much, it's glaring. So I often sort of teach in the dark. I have a lamp that I use to, and you may know as an artist, you may know more than I do about this, but right, I have a lamp that's sort of behind my laptop that provides some light. You can think about the directionality of the light and where the soft light would come from. I'll also maybe mention that I'm running a second camera here, right? So you can see my phone. Let me just turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. This is my kitchen studio. On my kitchen counter, you can see I have a little tripod. My phone is there. And I'm running a second camera, and you can do that as a tool. I think right now it's really not close enough to the document that's under it, right? So I might want to play around with how close to get it. But my colleague, Amelia Ettinger, did a class this summer. She does some beautiful kinds of pen and ink art. And so she had her laptop camera on her face, and her hand was in the frame doing stuff that she was demonstrating for her students. So that's another feature that might work well for artists. You could have one camera on your face and one camera on an easel, right? So that you can depict what you're doing. Just depends on the kind of art you're wanting to show. And then you can play around with how close you have to get the camera to the to the easel to make it visible to people. Okay, any questions so far?
No, so far so good. You're explaining things really well. So.
Oh, that's great. Yay. Okay, so something else that you can do is do a screen share. You can share your screen, or you can have your participants share their screen. I'm just going to make sure that I have something shareable in the background here. Let me see if I can find something. Sorry, momentarily, I will be ready. Okay, now I've got something in the background. Okay, so if you let me, I'll share my screen first, and then I'll make this available to you so that you can play around with it if you want to. So this is what it looks like to share my screen. Right, so now I'm showing the Art Center East website. If you have digital media that you want to share with students, you can share audio, you can share video, you can share images. Sometimes what I do, let me stop this share, I'll show you something else that I do. Since I'm a writing teacher, sometimes what I do is just share a blank document. Right, so if I'm working with students and I want to sort of capture some discussion, I might take my notes, right, as people talk so that they can kind of see. You could also use it for PowerPoint slides if you're that kind of lecturer and want to share slides with people. So let me see if I can make it possible for you to, let's see. Okay, so now I'm making it possible for you to share your screen. If you want, you know, you might want to just double check you don't have anything X-rated back there and floating around in the background. But I think, so if you look at look at the menu at the bottom of the screen, you should hopefully see a share screen button. And if you click on it, I'm just going to do it again, you'll see a kind of menu of the windows that are open on your computer, and you can pick one, right? So I just did mine. I'm going to stop. And if someone else wants to give it a try, we can see if it works. I don't know. Sometimes it's a little bit dicey to see if things happen the way you think they will.
I'm using an iPad.
Oh, okay.
So there's nothing at the bottom.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, Carol, I'm not familiar with the way it looks on an iPad, but I'm sure it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So one thing, so once you start, if you want to do this work, what you might do, maybe the two of us or you and another person from the Art Center could get into a Zoom and just play around with it.
Okay.
Practice.
Okay.
Yeah, we're really happy to help people do that. And in fact, we're really happy to be the, like, I want to say like the Zoom host for you.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if you want to set up a teaching moment where you're doing the teaching and someone else is handling the technology, just so you feel comfortable. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Good to hear.
Okay. So let's see. Let me just add one other little wrinkle. And this, I've seen the Oregon Humanities, I do this a lot with students, but Oregon Humanities also did something like this with breakout rooms when they were having community conversations during the March experience of COVID. So I'm just gonna show you what it looks like to be in a breakout room. I'm gonna break us all up randomly. Just let us be there for a couple minutes and bring us back. So feel free to have a conversation with people that are in your breakout session if you like. So I'm setting up a breakout room. I'm going to make 2 of them. We'll assign automatically. And I'm going to set it up to last 2 minutes. And you'll have a 10-second warning before you come back together. All right, so here we go. It'll invite you to join your breakout room, and you can just click on the join button. Carol, do you see a join button on your iPad?
room. I saw Darcy for a second and then she was gone.
Oh, no. I think, and it looked like on my end, it looked like your screen froze up.
Oh,
So I
Oh.
don't know what happened there, but yeah, I
Okay.
think I'd want to play around with the iPad a little bit to know a bit more about how
or
it
maybe
looks.
it's better to do it with a computer. Maybe I should learn to do it with a computer.
Well, and I
I
think
think.
that that's just how I do it. So whether that's the
Mhm.
way everyone should do it, I don't know.
Oh,
But
Yeah.
you could run a laptop camera and then use your iPad as a second camera to do things.
Okay.
That works.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're all back. The last thing I want to show you is just the chat. So you'll see in the menu at the bottom of your screen, or if you have an iPad, I'm not sure exactly where it would be. There's a chat button and you can just type. Thanks, Kathy. Yep, here we all are. And I've got to say, it's really interesting. My workplace, when the administration does meetings, they block the chat, and it's very kind of, it's distancing. Like I kind of like to be able to chat with people as the meeting's moving forward. I was in on the blacksmithing event that we had last week, and they didn't allow folks to speak. So all the audio was controlled by the presenters, but they had this really active chat that was just a delight to be part of. So again, that's something you can think about as a presenter, whether you want to have people have access to a chat or not. If you want people to have their cameras on or an audio available or not, those things can be set up when you set up your session. So I'm going to screech to a halt there, and then maybe Sarah or Laura, do you want to talk about teaching with Zoom?
Yeah, sure. I'll just quickly explain my very limited experience. I've only done it really once. And, Zoom was completely new to me starting this summer, like I think almost everyone. Anyway, so, and I'm not a particularly technically apt person. So hello, if I can do it, you can do it. That's how I feel about it. And I was also extremely skeptical about how it would work. I think that for me, a big part of teaching is just creating connections with people. And a lot of what I teach is actually cooking, so culinary arts stuff. And I was like, how is this going to work to demonstrate cooking, which is such a sensory thing, with only visual? Like, how will we do this? But I was pleasantly surprised. So I taught one cooking class that we did as kind of a little tester, and we had a decent sized group. I think we had in, the Brady Bunch screen, we had like 12 people, something like that. And so we all fit on one screen, which was nice. That's something to think about when you're setting an enrollment limit. Do you want to be able to see everybody at once? What kind of class? How much interaction is there going to be? And if there's going to be a lot, you probably want to be able to see what everyone's doing. And let's see, some challenges that I encountered were, I'm really only like a very small step ahead of the people joining into the Zoom meeting. And so when there were technical issues, one of them I was not able to resolve. And luckily the person was very sweet about it, but she couldn't figure out how to make her camera work. And we tried everything that we knew, but oftentimes there's settings on people's personal devices that are preventing the camera from working. And you're not always able to troubleshoot that if you're not really familiar with lots of different devices. So I felt badly about that. She was very kind about it, but there's just going to be those moments where it's going to hit the limit of what you can do. But being aware of that. And then another challenge was I have really bad rural internet and old equipment. So, my images are not sharp. I finally figured out lighting. I just have this lamp that's got like a nice white light to it, warm light. But I had to try a few different lamps to figure that out. And so practicing, I set everything up ahead of time, like the weekend before. I did 2 screens. I used my iPad because I wanted to be able to have stuff visible on the stove while I was cooking that. And then I used my laptop, and the laptop is great because it's really easy to like pivot it down and show what my hands were doing without holding anything and without a tripod, right? I don't need any other special equipment if I'm using a laptop. But my laptop's like 10 years old and the camera's that old. And so it's not super sharp, wonderful image, you know. But you can do it. You can do it with what you already have for the most part, as long as there's a camera there. You can find a lamp in your house that'll work, and it looks hilarious from your side of things. But as long as it looks fine, you know, from the rectangular square that they're gonna see, then you're good to go. You only have to clean that much of your house. So those were my main challenges, was that my technological aptitude was low. I felt, you know, some anxiety about helping other people along those lines. And then my equipment also was nothing special. And I wasn't sure how the connecting and the actual experience of the class, how good that was going to be. But it was low pressure because it was just a test. So it was great. I was totally blown away though by the experience. You know, I won't talk about all of it, but some of the things that really stood out to me that I felt like were things that may not even be happening in an in-person class. The main one being, I'm, you know, in teaching something like a skill like art or cooking or those types of things, that, you know, as a teacher, this is something that's very important to me and special to me, and that I hope that the students will go home and practice at home. But I don't know if they will. And there's a difference between doing something in an art studio or, you know, a commercial kitchen versus doing it in your own home. And the cool thing about Zoom is that they're already in their own home. So you're building an experience for them that is very personal. It's in their space. It's building the empowerment and the muscle memory and the all that of like, oh, I can cook this in my own kitchen. This isn't something I did somewhere else and I'll never do again. I did it in my kitchen with my stuff, you know. And I think that's translatable to painting and sculpture and all of the arts, that they had to set up a space in their own home. They had to bring it there first, you know, so it isn't something separate. And I wasn't expecting that to be so cool. And the way that it played out was I sent out, you know, everybody had to buy their own ingredients. And as we were starting to make things, some people were like opening up a spice jar and they're like, oh no, it's empty. What do I do? So we just had to, or like, oh, I thought I had that kind of vinegar, but I don't. And so we just troubleshooted as a group, and it was great. So it was like, well, what do you have? Okay, out of those things, here's what I'd pick as a substitute, you know. So we got to do that sort of real world experience of like using what you have on hand if you find out you don't have the right ingredient. So all of that I felt like was just a really fun, there's a lot of teaching moments in that played out really well in the class. And it was also, I think, it was, I don't know, there was like a camaraderie that was built between the group in the way that people interacted and, you know, sort of shared their personal space with the rest of the group. And there was nothing in particular, but just, you know, it felt like we were together, even though we were just rectangles on a screen. And I wasn't expecting that quite so well. And then, yeah, I think that, you know, we did an evaluation of the class, and I was expecting people to maybe be a little critical about the quality of the demonstration and the viewing, but they weren't. Everybody said that they could see things well, they could hear things well, and they also, you know, overwhelmingly felt they got a value out of the class. And so it really showed me that the key to getting this right isn't having the right equipment, it isn't being a technical wizard, it's finding ways to, you know, connect with people directly, you know, checking in with each student, making sure that people aren't getting lost, you know, you're not going too fast. Having people share their own stories. I really approached it as a collaborative thing. You know, here we are cooking. I'm not the be all end all chef of the world. Like, you tell me what you know about these things, because I want to learn from you too. And that whole thing created a nice collaborative environment. So the other cool thing that I'll say that is available in a Zoom classroom that isn't available in an in-person classroom is you can have people who are in your life or in your audience, whatever that may be, who can join from a distance. So like my sister who lives in Brooklyn, New York, was able to be in the class. That was super fun. You know, things like that are more possible in Zoom. So yeah, I will pass it on to Laura.
Well, I'm knowing that some of you are more kind of hands-on artists. I think in some ways what Sarah has shared has been probably pretty valuable. I'm more of a writing artist and teacher and a community storytelling teacher. And a lot of my experience has been in that realm in terms of teaching on Zoom. And so I've done a lot of work with the breakout rooms. That's been a major feature of what I've done with groups, is get them into small groups to have them talk to each other. And a couple of experiences that I've had this lovely pandemic has been that I'm a pastor, and my denomination put their national conference online through Zoom, and that was quite something. I second with Nancy, when people shut off the chat, it definitely makes it sort of feel less personal. But I will say, as if you are the lone administrator of this and you're trying to teach and manage chat, if you have a decent number of students, I mean, if you have like 2 or 3 students, it's not too big of a deal. But if you have more than that, it would be really good to have a second person helping you, because then you can ask them to watch the chat. And that way you can focus on the teaching. I find it challenging, and I've seen other teachers trying to manage the chat and teach at the same time and get kind of like, you know, sidetracked or distracted. Challenges that I've come across that haven't been mentioned yet are when occasionally you'll get a message on your lovely screen that says your internet is unstable. And I've learned that one of the ways that you can adapt and overcome that for a time, for however, you know, for a while, is you can shut off your video, and it will usually, I mean, that could be a problem if part of your video is trying to show people something, but if you're just talking at them, it's fine. Or you're trying to facilitate them having a conversation, you know, you can shut off your video for a little bit and then try it again when it seems like, you know, you want to see if it's stable again. That also can help if things start freezing up. And so just, you know, taking one stream of uploading it or information out of the play can help manage that issue. I've also had when people on and they don't have any, like they can hear me, but I can't hear them. And sometimes I just tell them to click off, you know, to jump off the Zoom and then jump back on. For whatever reason, a lot of times that will fix it. I have no idea what the tech is behind that, but that is another technical difficulty technique to know about. I'm trying to think of any other things that you all haven't mentioned that I've experienced. I think for some of what I've done, some of the most successful sort of storytelling things have been when people can bring tangible objects and use them as show and tell. And so this is why, in some ways, doing art on here might be one of the best ways to build community, because you're already working with tangible objects a lot of times, where some of with more, you know, stories, it's a little more out there. The tangible object prompts can really help warm people up to each other. So I've had people bring, you know, items in, or like the background prompt is kind of a fun one. Of course, they have to have a little bit of know-how to get their virtual background up. So I have liked that with some of the community building kinds of things I've been doing on Zoom. I took The other major event that went online that was not originally supposed to be online but went there was the certificate in community storytelling class that I was part of this year. And again, they were, this happened early in April, and the leaders of that were like, I don't know if we can make this work because it's all about building community. And amazingly, it did. It still worked. We all still fell in love with each other and, had a really wonderful collective experience together as a group, and were able to do probably a lot of the same things that we could do in a week-long workshop, which is what we were supposed to have. But I will say I really miss the coffee, the coffee chats that you have in between classes, like the bathroom break chats that you have with people. Didn't get to have those. So a little bit of community building lost in the marginal stuff that's not part of the program, was really lost in the sidelines. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that you all haven't already spoken of that that is unique to my experience, but those are some of my little tidbits that I've gleaned over the time that I've been using it.
Great, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Sarah. Do folks have, Darcy, go ahead.
Yeah, I got the privilege to take Sarah's culinary class, and what I found that was really helpful in that circumstance is she sent out kind of a handout overview that was via email, just a document that kind of just broke everything down. It was a nice outline. People could go back to it. It had all the supply lists included. So that might be something that you want to think about, is just giving people that other portion that they can reference after the class, or just right before, so they don't feel as panicked, maybe if it's new to them. So that's just one thing that might be on your list to think about.
I'll jump in and chime in on that. A lot of my classes that I've worked with, it's been really important to set up some community covenants. I mean, I don't know if that's something that you ever, if there's a lot of personal sharing going on in your space, setting up that ahead of time and sending that out as a document ahead of time saves time in the space to say, here's the expectations I have about you keeping other people's confidentiality, or the kind of things we're going to share in this space. And so another thing that I've learned is helpful is making sure people if they're going to show up, you ask them to really show up, because the one downside of this is that it can be just, people can be trying to multitask. you especially, like, they can be flipping between screens, which I must say I've been guilty of in some of the meetings I've had to sit through. So I know exactly what they're doing. But, just to invite them gently to make sure that they're prepared to be fully present for the class in some way.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. That I think a nice thing to do when the class starts is to really set an etiquette for that class, because there are different Zoom etiquettes for different situations. If you're at a conference of 100 people, like, everyone's definitely got to be on mute. It won't work otherwise. But if you're in a collaborative cooking class or drawing class or studio type scenario, maybe it's okay for everybody to not be on mute. Like, that's what we did in the cooking class. And I think it just invited people to chat, to sort of narrate what they were doing and that sort of thing. And I found that to be an important element of the connection that we were building. I honestly, one of my main experiences with Zoom this summer was participating in Fish Trap, a writing workshop. And the etiquette of that, even in our smaller groups, seemed to be like everybody be on mute. And I actually had a hard time with that at a certain point, because I just felt like it was silencing me, like I wanted to hear people chuckle. I wanted to, I didn't care if they coughed, that stuff doesn't bother me. Like, I want to know there's humans there. So just think about what makes sense for your format, ahead of time. And I think there is a little bit more of thinking through that kind of stuff when you're planning one of these online classes. You have to be a little bit more aware of this format. But, I think, like all creative constraints, it is ripe with opportunities, and there's fun ways to play with this. So just think of it as, like, what are the opportunities present in this format? I'm not going to try to do a class based on like smelling this food because I can't do that, you know. But if there's something, maybe there's something about sound, maybe we could talk about like the sound that it makes, or, you know, like just think of what you do have rather than what you don't. And I think it's more fun, you know, it feels like a creative problem to solve rather than a bummer that we can't be together. So yeah, I think if anybody wants to ask questions, that is what this time is reserved for, or just bounce ideas around. And feel free to unmute. You know, we don't have to all be unmute at this point.
Yeah,
Eduardo. I think you are on mute, Eduardo, just so you know, we can't hear you.
Mute my audio. Okay, there we go.
Yay.
Got it.
Yeah, I've probably done about 12 Zoom sessions at this point, teaching and demoing. And like right now I'm teaching a 4-part watercolor class. And I have found that with the share screen, it's really nice to have people put up their work. Or if I have an artist I want people to look at, I, you know, have like a little folder. I've got all my images in there. But I kept making the mistake of not having my work on the same exact screen that you're sharing the screen on. So then it was always like, what happened to my stuff? I just did all this work and now it's not here. So just a little friendly reminder that, yeah, this, you know, we've got those several windows on our computer. So so that was one thing. Also, it is nice to have people show and tell and, you know, give time to that. And also I usually don't mute my, my sessions, although I've been doing some work for Multnomah Athletic Club, and they do this like wine and paint thing. They asked me to do, so we all like do a glass, you know, raise and cheer. We share what wines we're drinking, and then they asked me to do a demo, but there's like 50 people that sign up for this thing. So yeah, it's like a lot of people really is a good idea to mute. But like when the class is, you know, 7, 8 people, I really like having it unmuted and having it be spontaneous so people can talk and stuff. So, and my only other challenge is I still haven't really dialed in my camera work, like panning between the different cameras. I still have to figure that out and get really a lot better at it, because especially with drawing or painting, you know, people want to see you actually handling the materials and drawing it and having a nice image to do it. So hopefully that'll get better as I go along.
Have you had any specific like challenges or successes with that, like sort of technical use of the materials? Like I was wondering, you know, because the lighting will affect the way the color looks. Like how does it work to teach like color mixing or things like that? You know, I don't know if you've experienced that yet.
Yeah, well what I've been doing, I've taken my iPad and I just set it up right over my materials and my desk. Or else what I do is I lean things up and I try to get the angle of the camera or the iPad the same angle as the work. And that seems to be okay. And I also like put the iPad right here. I'm usually not in the picture and I try to fill in the whole frame with the iPad. So I like go back and I look, but I realize that's kind of like caveman style at this point, because, you know, I can set up several cameras to do that. And right now I have a good Canon camera. So actually when I hang up, I'm going to keep playing with it so I can, you know, use it together. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. I think what I've been doing with the iPad is I just make sure that I fill the screen and I'm close enough so that they get a good close up. And I do have good lighting in my studio, so that makes a big difference.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
Carol or Kathy, do either of you have any questions about teaching online or, specific to what you might want to teach?
I'm probably not ready for to develop questions yet, but I think questions will come up as I think over what I've picked up tonight.
Yeah, great. Wonderful.
Yeah,
This is-
I've practiced a few times just starting up and getting on Zoom and then starting a session and then pretending I have a class and just kind of acting through it, so to speak.
Yeah, that's what I did. And I actually, I found just through playing around, I could actually do more than I'd initially thought I would be able to, so that's really helpful. And we can totally set up a practice Zoom room for anybody who wants to do that.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing is I really try to make sure to have my camera like at eye level and I'm looking at them when I speak. Because I've noticed sometimes in my practice, it felt like I was wandering somewhere talking, but it's better to look right, set it up at the right height and talk into the camera.
Well, and I've found that for me to feel like I'm actually talking directly at people, it helps to put them on speaker view if because then they're like only the one thing fills the middle of the screen. So then I'm looking at my camera when I'm looking at them, which isn't always the case if I'm like, oh, I'm looking at Nancy because Nancy's over here on the left-hand screen, which is another thing to keep in mind. This screen does not stay the same. Like your version of this is not the same as my version. The Brady Bunch on your screen is different than the Brady Bunch on my screen, and it will move around. So this comes into play if you're, trying to do like a, this actually just came up in a discussion group we were doing the other day. The leader was like, I'm going to go to the left. And the person assumed that everybody had the same person to the left of him, but it wasn't the same person to the left. So anyway, it's better just to call on people rather than to sort of like try to go around the circle because it won't work. No one will know where they are in your circle.
Yeah. There isn't one circle.
Oh, it's all different. So, and for example, if I click out a video, what I've noticed is that people who click out a video, their screen moves somewhere else usually on my whole Brady Bunch screen. I don't know why that is. I don't know if this will happen. So like, did I move on your screen somewhere else? Yeah.
You're gone.
Yeah. Well, and you can, that's another trick. There are places where you can hide yourself. So you don't have to look at yourself, hide self view. It's if you go up to your little 3-dot thing in the corner. Did you already talk about this, Nancy?
No, I don't actually know how to do that. So.
Oh, yeah, it's up in your square.
Oh yeah.
Up cool. I don't know how it is on an iPad though. So it might be different on the iPad. Sorry about that, Carol. But on a computer, if you go up in your square, you click the 3 dots, there's a line that says hide self view and you cannot have to look at yourself. Now, I must say I tried it a couple of times in conferences and I found it actually sort of anxiety producing for me because then I didn't know what I was doing and that bothered me too. So I don't know. It's all up to you.
It is lose-lose, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll leave a little time if anybody else has a question, comment, or observation.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're here if anybody needs additional, brainstorming or coaching or any of that, we're here for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so,
yeah, go ahead.
So then, so if we have a class in mind and we want to present it, do we just email you and say, hey, I want to try this or try that? Or are there things you want us to teach for you? Or
yeah,
how can we help you, do your classes online?
Yeah, so the way that we've kind of traditionally done taken ideas for classes is on our website. We have there's a tab that says artists, and under that tab there's a Teach for ACE button. And so if you go to that page, there's a class proposal. which is kind of for a formulated idea. So if you're more at the, I'm not sure what I want to do stage, I think just emailing either me or Darcy. Do you feel good about that, Darcy? And our email addresses are our name. So mine is Sarah with an H at artcentereast.org. And then Darcy's is Darcy at artcentereast.org. And these are available on the website as well. So yeah, you can just send us some ideas. And our online class offering has been pretty limited so far, mostly because we're just, I think a lot of the teachers out there just aren't really sure what foot to start with first and how this is going to work and what it looks like, hence doing this orientation. And so hopefully this will help inspire some ideas in this group, and then other people who see the video. But yeah, and I think at this point, the way that it works on our side is if you do a class with us, we put it onto our online calendar of upcoming classes. We promote it just like we would promote our in-person classes. Right now, our promotions are mostly digital. We promote on our website, through our e-newsletter, and on our social media pages. And right now we're also doing what's called boosting the social media posts. So we're putting a little money behind them to advertise more widely, because we're realizing that, we can have Eduardo teach from Portland, and we can also have someone attend from Kansas. It's not limited to Northeast Oregon right now. So that's cool. So for the online classes, especially, we're expanding the area that we're advertising to see if we can get some more people to get excited about taking online art classes. And we're just, we are also not experts on this. This isn't, we don't come with lots of experience for how to do this. We're figuring it out with you, but that's kind of nice, right? We're all just in this together, and the students are too. And there's great camaraderie in that. And then, yeah, so when, you guys registered for this class, it was free to register, but you just RSVP'd, and then you were emailed a link. So we have it set up that our website kind of auto generates a link for a meeting when we create the class. So if you teach, the only thing you need to do is just initiate the meeting, and we'll give you the training that you need to do that. So we do all the setting up, we do all the advertising, and dealing with managing the registrations, and then you just show up and teach the class and then get paid for it later. So
Wonderful.
yeah, that's how it works. And the more, with all of our classes, the more information you can give us about what the experience will be like, and even some images that would, well represent what somebody would make in that class or what would be studied. All of those help us do a better job of accurately and, engagingly sell that class. Yeah. Darcy, is there anything you want to add about?
I'm just excited to see what comes out of this creative space of this venue, really. Eduardo, you mentioned like a wine and painting class. We used to have one of those in person that was highly popular. So that might be a good one to throw in there. I bet our community would love the wine they have at their house more than the wine that we provided. So,
Yeah.
Things like that. Nothing really to add. Just know that it's an open door. If you have any questions or concerns, or you're struggling, we're really here to help, like Sarah mentioned.
Yeah, we're excited, about the possibilities of this. We don't know what they are yet. We just don't know where this could go. And another thing I'll say, especially right now, when, for some people in person is just not an option, but for those who it is an option, guess what? You can't have as many people in class because the space requirements. And so the online classes are where you can get more students, and the way that we pay out our classes is by the number of students who attend your class. You get a fee per student, so you can actually potentially make more money in an online class than you could an in-person class, because our space can only handle so many people safely, even in our biggest studio. So that's another thing to think about as far as if we can get this thing rolling, it could be a better source of income for your monetizing your skills, which is an important thing to do when you're an artist. It's essential. So, okay, well, yes, please be in touch if you have any other questions. Thank you so much for braving the Zoom.
Thank you.
Join us. It was
you
lovely
very
to
much.
meet those of you I haven't met before. And
yeah,
we'll see
Really
you around.
great presentation, by the way. I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
Very-
I like
you.
it too.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, feel
Yeah.
free once it's up, feel free to revisit or share with other people. So, all right. Have a great night, everybody.
Nice.
Thank you.
bye.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.